Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Mediwake.
I'm Lindsey Deluce.
And I'm Michelle Jobin.
Welcome to CTV Your Morning, the podcast.
Today on the podcast, the new science of alcohol. A new documentary takes a deep dive into drinking's effect on our bodies and brains.
And from AI to self-driving cars, why 2026 could be a breakthrough year for technology.
Oh, and remember, start your day with us live weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, 7 to 10 a.m. Atlantic. We're on CTV, we're on CTV News Channel, and now we're on Crave.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. Can you guys believe that we are already at the end of January?
No, wild.
I know. I feel like it's flying.
Yeah.
On today's episode, we are going to find out why boredom is so good for children. Plus, we're going to talk about what actually works when trying to prevent or kick a cold from a family doctor's perspective.
This is all very useful information. We're also going to be joined by Sinead Bovell. She is a futurist and a tech entrepreneur, and she's sharing her predictions for the trends that will emerge in 2026. Listen, it's everything from self-driving cars to voice-based technology.
We've also got a hot button issue, lobster boiling. We'll be joined by a professor of psychology at Dalhousie University. She studies stress responses in animals, and we'll be asking her if she thinks Canada should follow England's lead and ban the boiling of lobsters.
Did you know lobster boiling, live lobster boiling, is already banned in countries like Switzerland, Norway, and in New Zealand? It's a fascinating conversation coming up, but first, we know a lot of you are participating in Dry January, and there's a new doc out. It takes a deep dive into what happens to our bodies when we consume alcohol.
Cheers, buddy. When I drink, I tend to tell everybody that I know that I love them. I was thinking I should tell this guy I love him. So, yeah, I drink.
Anthony Morgan takes a deep dive into how drinking affects our bodies, brains, and why experts agree that no amount of alcohol is risk-free. Anthony joins me in studio this morning. Great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, really excited to be here.
So let's talk about the fact that I think it's important to point out that you and the experts that you spoke to all drink alcohol.
Everybody.
You're not up on a sober soapbox, so to speak.
Not at all.
By any means. This is a conversation about risk, but it's also about benefit. So let's talk first about the risk. What are we looking at here?
Sure. So we know from the largest study ever conducted, it was done by Dr. Anya Tapiwala in the UK with this massive sample size, 35,000 people, most we've ever studied, looking at moderate drinkers, that even moderate amounts of drinking, moderate amounts of alcohol, meaning like 1 or 2 drinks a week, does substantially raise your risk of cancer. So there is no safe level of alcohol to consume, which for me personally was kind of a bummer because, you know, I, like a lot of people from time to time, enjoy a drink, but the data's clear, there is a risk in doing that.
And 1 to 2 drinks, hearing that that's the moderate amount, I think is also eye-opening for a lot of people.
It blew me away. That was part of what started this whole journey for me, was that the original guidelines from Health Canada said that 15 drinks a week. So maybe a beer or a glass of wine, that's something like a standard drink. 15 of those a week and you're good. You don't have anything to worry about. And then when this new study came out, we updated those guidelines and revised it down from 15 to 2, and it made headlines across the world. This came out in 2023. But then what was odd to me was that these guidelines say 15 a week, downgraded to 2, but both are still sort of in place. And so a lot of Canadians like me were kind of wondering, well, what is safe to do? What am I allowed to do? Where should I be aiming for?
What about on the other side of things? Was there any benefit at all to alcohol consumption?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have heard about the benefits, which is part of the reason that many of us still do enjoy a drink. We've heard that red wine could be good for your heart, and it's good for your social life. And although there is a benefit to drinking red wine for your heart, it is by far outweighed by the risks. But the main reason that a lot of people like to drink is obviously that it's a social lubricant, right? It makes you feel all loosey-goosey, relaxed, and chill with friends. And there does seem to be data that supports that.
Ultimately, once you talked to all the experts and you received everything that they had to say, what was the final word from experts regarding alcohol consumption?
Well, so the final word was that it's up to you and up to me and up to all of us, that alcohol, like many things in life, comes with some risks, But I asked all of them, and this surprised me, that I asked them, you understand the risks of drinking better than anybody. Do you still drink? And uniformly, every expert I talked to said, yeah, I still enjoy a glass of wine at dinner or a beer on the weekends from time to time. That I know that alcohol comes with risks, but just like driving or flying in planes, there are some risks that I'm willing to tolerate. Yeah, so.
You know what, Anthony, I love that as a fellow science communicator and science lover that you dove at it from that perspective, because what a fascinating way to look at it. Thank you for coming on today.
My pleasure.
By the way, you can catch Proof, the new science of alcohol on CBC and CBC Gem.
2026 is shaping up to be a landmark year for new tech.
You missed a girl you could control, but she packed up her pain and let it go. I found me in the wreckage and fire.
Look closely, that's AI. From a surge in AI artists to a rise in self-driving cars, experts are placing their bets on the tech breakthroughs that could happen this year. So joining us with her forecast is Sinead Bovell. She is a futurist and tech entrepreneur. Good morning, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, thanks for having me.
2025 was the first time AI-generated songs charted on the Billboard. And whether or not you like this, whether or not you think they're artists, it is happening. So what role are you expecting AI to play in music this year?
Ooh, it's a great question. So I actually think in 2026, it could be the year where an AI-enhanced song, or maybe even an entirely AI-generated song, might be considered award-worthy. And I think this is going to divide culture between people who legitimately think, you know what, this is the next evolution in art and in creativity, and then those who feel this undermines the process. And why I think this, if you look at the music labels, several of the biggest labels actually did significant deals with AI music startups, some of whom they were previously suing in the years prior. So this shows us the signals of where these labels are investing and that they're expecting AI to play a significant role in the music industry going forward. And we did see some songs hit the Billboard that were largely AI enhanced. We're going to hear more of that in 2026.
Yeah, I always go back to that. If ever things seem like you can't, murky and you can't figure it out, follow the money. So if the investment's there and you say awards, do you mean things like the Billboard Awards or the Grammys?
I think that listeners will think that they are award worthy. It's going to be really interesting to see if the actual award shows put their stamp of approval on AI-generated music the way Vogue put its stamp of approval on AI-generated ads in the magazine in 2025.
Ooh, interesting. All right, let's talk about self-driving cars. Those are gearing up big for 2026. And this includes robo-taxi company Waymo, which plans to expand its autonomous rideshare service. That wasn't Waymo. Was that Waymo? To 20 cities so far this year. So how close could this year bring us to self-driving cars becoming the norm? Well, we should mention that Waymo right now is lobbying provinces like Ontario and BC to become a regular service in those cities.
Right, and they've also announced a big investment into London in 2026. So I think what's important for people to recognize is that we've actually already moved out of the driverless vehicles having to prove themselves or being in this kind of pilot phase into these services are actually stealing meaningful market share from companies like Uber. 1 in 4 ride shares in San Francisco is a Waymo, is a driverless Waymo. And we're seeing those trends take off in Phoenix and in Miami. So I think we'll start to see those dynamics in cities throughout the world, not just in these kind of warm, beautiful climates in the States, but driving in the icy city of Toronto in the winter or in New Delhi in rush hour is very different than the smooth streets of Miami. So expect there to still be some hiccups and ebbs and flows. But we are now moving towards this is a concept to this is happening.
Wow. Okay, you are also predicting that the tech world is going to become more voice-based this year. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so when you think about interacting with AI, you can text to it, but the much more natural way to engage with these systems is just to use voice, to talk to it. We are starting to see that that's becoming the dominant way people are interacting with even systems like ChatGPT, using the voice first option. But we're also starting to see AI companies step into the world of AI glasses. And this is really strategic because if you have AI glasses on, it means that you have a voice assistant much closer to your ear. So expect to hear some announcements from Apple. Expect to definitely hear announcements from Google, more announcements from Meta, and new companies stepping into the game where they're going to be optimizing for a voice-first world, largely driven by AI systems. And even this in 2025, we heard about Apple bringing translation to the AirPods. Most people heard, yes, I can translate to any language as I'm traveling. I heard there's now an AI in your ear. And that is the path that we are starting to move down.
This sounds very 1984, but the future is now. Sinead Bovell, futurist and tech expert, great to have your insights this morning, especially at the beginning of the new year.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Well, you've probably heard the phrase feed a cold, starve a fever, or that eating raw garlic can cure a cold, but is there any truth to those ideas? We're still in the thick of cold and flu season. So this morning, we are finding out what really works to prevent getting sick and how to treat a cold once you've caught it. Family physician Dr. Vera Cahoot joins me this morning with her tips. Great to have you back.
Thank you. Great to be back. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So first of all, what is the difference between a cold and a flu?
So both of those are viruses, okay, of various kinds, by the way. It's not a singleton thing. But in short, influenza, which is really made up of a number of viruses, packs a punch, okay? You get a high fever, you are sick, okay? You will have headaches, you will have muscle aches and pains, you will be down for the count. The level of inflammation is high, which is why you do not feel well for quite a while. You will be sick for about 5 days at least, and you might find yourself feeling fatigued and unwell for even a couple of weeks afterwards. A cold, you'll have some of the same symptoms. You're not as sick. You'll have maybe a low-grade fever, but it'll be mostly nasal respiratory, runny nose, congestion. And you know what? You'll kind of feel miserable, but you'll be okay.
You'll be okay. Okay, so and we're going to give you tips on how to deal with it. You hear a lot of theories about what causes colds, and a lot of people like to say, don't go out with wet hair. Make sure you wear socks. If you don't dress warm enough in winter, you'll get sick. Are any of those true?
They're popular theories, but look, viruses are what cause colds. Viruses are what cause influenza. Okay, so you need a virus. That's your first thing. And then what you also need is that there are circumstances that make it easier to pick up a virus. So in the winter time, when our air is drier, okay, and what's happening is when we speak, when we cough, when we sneeze, we exude moisture. We have little tiny droplets. In dry air, those droplets, if they contain a virus, are airborne. They stay airborne. So that means if I'm sitting here and I'm carrying a virus and I'm speaking, what I'm exuding goes into the air is dry, the virus in those droplets stay airborne, you're breathing it in. Okay. In the summertime, the air is moist, okay? The droplets are already big. And now I add droplets with my speech or with my cough, and what happens? They drop. So we're not as transmissible just from that alone. And then there's the other thing, okay? Outside, we're in the summer, we're outside. Inside, in the wintertime, we're breathing and rebreathing all that air. And then finally, our nasal passages and our immune system is not as effective in the wintertime because of the fact that in the wintertime, with things being drier, things can stay in our respiratory tract, in our nasal passages, which are normally asking for things to go out. No, it stays here and we can inhale them in deeper.
Okay, so what actually works to prevent getting sick then?
Okay, so we can categorize this into a couple of categories. One is just being healthy. So being healthy is drinking lots of fluids, eating properly, exercising, getting plenty of sleep. Okay, so that's just general stuff. Okay, if we talk about what to do when you're sick, okay, well, if you don't, first of all, what to talk about not getting sick. So a couple of things. Do those things that I've just mentioned. The other thing is keep your hands away from your face, please, and your eyes and your nose and your mouth, okay? Wipe things down, okay? Don't, when you're handling things, clean them. If you're sick, stay at home. We don't want you, okay? And stay at home and rest and drink lots of fluids. Humidify the air so that your respiratory tract is a little bit more humid. You can shed the virus. Drink lots of fluids so you can actually make the circulation of your immune cells better, and the mucus is thinner and you can shed it, okay? Wipe surfaces down. Okay, if you're on your phone, on your cell phone, on your computer or whatever, keep wiping surfaces down. Wipe down doorknobs, wipe down faucets, wipe things down with alcohol wipes so that you're not transmitting from the thing that was touched to your hands, and you will touch your face, okay? And just kind of chill out. Stay home, okay? Drink lots of fluids. If you have a sore throat, gargle with some salt water. If you have a low-grade fever, take some acetaminophen. Don't take aspirin, not for a child because of Reye's syndrome. So do things that keep others safe.
Family physician, Dr. Vera Cahoot, we love having you on the show. Thanks so much for coming back.
Thanks very much. It's great fun.
England's decision to ban the boiling of live lobsters is something that Atlantic Canada is watching closely. Lobster boils are a popular tradition there, stemming from a booming industry that generates nearly $3 billion every year. So, could or should Canada implement a similar ban? And how would the seafood industry be affected if we did? Joining us this morning is Shelley Adamo. She's a professor of psychology at Dalhousie University. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I think this story is going to be new to people, maybe not in Atlantic Canada, but certainly in the rest of the country. I guess I want to start with, where do you stand on whether or not Canada should impose a ban on boiling live lobsters?
Well, first, I want to say, of course, we should be kind to animals, and animal welfare is a serious issue. I have concerns because I really don't think lobsters have the capacity for feeling pain, certainly not the way we do. So we have to be careful about putting in something that sounds good, but might have minimal benefit for lobsters and could really hurt people who we know can suffer. And certainly our lobster fishers here in Nova Scotia, they're under a lot of pressure right now as it is, and they definitely can suffer.
One of the arguments made in the UK case is the other options as opposed to live boiling. So we know that you can grill lobster, poach it, bake it, and more. What's the argument for why not simply switching to a less controversial option?
Well, you could. I actually, interestingly enough, a paper that was published a few years ago showed that one of the kindest things you can do, and this sounds like an urban myth, but apparently it's true, you can put them in a lobster pot and just slowly increase temperature, like about a degree every minute or so. And in about 30 minutes, the brain stops functioning.
At the crux of this argument, at least across the Atlantic, is that there's no scientific consensus on whether or not lobsters feel pain.
Why? There's definitely no consensus.
Right. Why is it so difficult to determine?
You can't ask them. So that's the basic part. So you can't ask them. So you have to come up with other indirect tests and see what you can do. And the difficulty with this is that we know that robots and you can program machines to mimic human pain behavior. So just having the behavior itself doesn't necessarily mean that the organism or the entity is feeling pain. So pain is more than just being able to react to damage. It's that horrible emotional response. The problem is we don't know whether they actually have the capacity for that kind of emotional response. Mm-hmm. And the reason this is so unknown is we don't know a great deal about lobster brains, except that they're really small. And so the question is, how much neural brain cells, how many brain cells do you need to actually have that kind of capacity? And that's a really tough question to answer, and we don't know the answer. I think that it's more likely that they don't have an inner experience of suffering, certainly not like we do.
We know in the UK, we mentioned there's a ban. The bans are also now in Switzerland, Norway, and New Zealand. So let's talk about Canada. We hold, as we said, more than, it's almost a $3 billion industry here in this country. We hold more than half of the world's supply in hard-shelled Atlantic lobsters. Lobster boils are common along the East Coast, both, in a family setting and also professional settings. So what could a change like this mean for the lobster industry here in Canada?
Well, it's concerning because right now, many lobsters, or the lobster fishery has issues trying to get its product to places like China, where there are now additional tariffs. There are trade issues with the United States. So they're having to rely more on the domestic market. And we also know that our restaurant owners who like to produce or make lobsters for us when we go out to dinner, they're also struggling. So many restaurants are having a really difficult time. To do the stunning, the way that the EU would prefer people prepare lobster, the equipment costs about $7,000. And so my concern is that for something that it's not clear there's any benefit at all, because we're not sure what lobsters may or may not feel, could be a huge burden on many restaurants. So they may just decide not to bother to serve lobster if they have to buy this additional piece of equipment. We're going to potentially cause harm to these communities, and it's not even clear that the lobsters will benefit by this. So that's my concern.
Shelley Adamo, professor of psychology at Dalhousie University. You study stress and responses in animals. Great to have your perspective on this as Atlantic Canada is watching to see what's happening in Europe with this ban. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're listening to Your Morning, the podcast, where we bring you some of our best conversations from the show every week. You can join us live on CTV every weekday. We're live up from 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern and 7 to 10 a.m. Atlantic on CTV CTV News Channel and on Crave. Okay, staying entertained through the winter can often look like curling up on the couch. But what about going to see a live theater show instead? If this is the norm for you and your family, then you know just how fun it is to get maybe dinner before, go see a show, and then you get to talk about it all the way home. Well, here to tell us what is worth our dollars in seeing this year is Joshua Chong, who's the art critic and culture reporter with the Toronto Star. Great to have you back.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You and I are having this conversation because we had it off camera last time, and I said, listen, it's expensive to go see a show. I want to know what's the best bang for my buck. So you put this list together for us.
It is.
Okay,
yep.
Let's start with The Outsiders. What did you enjoy most about this show?
I saw this on Broadway a few years ago. It won the Tony for Best New Musical. Adaptation of S.E. Hinton's seminal novel about these two rival gangs in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The stagecraft is second to none. It is directed by Dania Tamor.
Okay.
It is choreographed by two Toronto brothers.
Oh, I love that.
Jeff and Rick Cooperman. And it has one of the best fight sequences I have ever seen in the theater. Yes. It's the rumble between the two gangs. It happens in the middle of the second act.
Yeah.
You can see a bit of it now. And it is staged in the rain. It is five minutes long, and it is just incredible. It kind of shifts between realism, naturalism, very abstract at the same time. My jaw dropped when I saw it.
Adding this to the list.
Yep.
Also, now this is a really special experience. If you've ever seen Come From Away, you know that you leave soaring, but you got to see it in Gander, Newfoundland, where the story takes place. What was that like?
I did. I saw it 4 years ago, and it's come back there every summer since. And it was such a special experience getting to see it in the town where it's actually set. I flew in to that very airport where all those stranded passengers flew into following 9/11. Stepping into the town, the trees, and then before seeing the show in the evening, walking around town, going to the town hall, seeing the real life people like Beulah Cooper, these people that welcomed all these strangers into their houses.
And they're there in the town.
Exactly.
Now and still, amazing.
And the fun fact about that is that the theater where this is playing is right next to the skating rink that in the show was used as the world's largest walk-in refrigerator. So that was so cool.
That would be an amazing, I mean, that's worth a destination.
Yes.
Another Canadian classic, Casey and Diana. I know that played at Stratford earlier. Now you say it's touring. Why is this a must-see for people?
I saw it at Stratford and then in Toronto a couple of years ago. It's basically a contemporary Canadian classic at this point.
Remind people of the storyline here.
It's based on the true story of when Princess Diana in 1991 visited Casey House here in Toronto, which was a hospice for men living with AIDS. And it tells the story of the patients there and the staff in the week leading up to Princess Diana's visit. And it's a story about hope, resilience, found family in Casey House. It left me bawling. And I remember so clearly when I saw it, I was sitting on the aisle and just looking down the aisle in that final scene, down my row, and just seeing everyone just tearing up. It is such a special, moving show, and I'm so glad now that it's being seen across Canada. We have productions coming up in Calgary, in Edmonton, in Victoria, with new directors, new actors, putting their own spin on this story.
Okay, sounds like a powerful performance. Lastly, there's a classic that's come back to the stage, Death of a Salesman. Where can Canadian audiences watch this one?
So there are two major productions coming up. There is one in Edmonton at the Citadel Theatre, opening later this month. And then this summer, I'm really looking forward to seeing the one at the Stratford Festival, starring Tom McCamus and Lucy Peacock, who were in Macbeth. this previous year. And it's such a timely story right now about, it follows Willie Loman, a traveling salesman, and he is grasping on to the American dream that continually is slowly slipping further and further away from him. And I don't think there's a better moment right now to look and re-examine this classic story about, our hopes and dreams and family.
I love this list that you've put together. I feel like you've got something for everybody. Joshua, always great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you remember being bored as a kid before TikTok and tablets? It was a lot more common, I dare say. But now kids and all of us have access to entertainment all the time. And our next guest says that is creating a mental health problem. Here to tell us more about it is Calissa Ngazi, who's a mental health expert and child and youth care professor at Mohawk College. Quite the title, but I love it. Great to have you. You say kids, and I think all of us, are living in constant stimulation. So what does that look like?
It's funny, because earlier you talked about in the 90s, you showed that segment. It is so true. When I grew up, when you grew up, we were able to be bored. We were able to go outside until the lights came off. But kids these days have so much overstimulation that they don't know what that means. So everything from background noise to YouTube videos to all the screens. The gaming industry is actually brilliant because now we've lost the art of pause, right? So they have created these games where these kids cannot get off of them. Mom, I just need 5 more minutes. I need 10 more minutes, but I need you now, right? And it starts to play with their psyche.
I think there's also the element of an overcorrection by parents who maybe are trying to make up for not being the center of their parents' universe as kids, that now they've put their kids right in the center of their universe. So we're constantly entertaining them, even if it's not with screens. We're coming up with games for them to do all the time and feeling like we're their biggest playmate. And that doesn't help either.
No, it doesn't. And actually, it's a disservice to our kids because we're, like you said, we're feeling guilty. When we grow up, maybe our parents weren't as involved for whatever reason, work, all those things. So we're trying to correct that behavior because we thought, well, I'm going to do better. We're always going to do better. But what's happening is that these kids are now not understanding that go read a book, go do something else. Mommy or daddy or whoever is taking care of me can't always be there to tell you what boredom is. And parents need to stop feeling guilty. It's not your job to always find something for these kids to do.
So how does all this impact our kids' mental health?
Well, we're seeing an increased levels of depression and anxiety, loss of focus, emotional dysregulation. Now these kids are also being easily triggered. So things that for you and me might be super small is blowing up to these massive arguments and tantrums because these kids don't know how to regulate because we're not giving them the tips, tricks, and tools as to how to go through it.
So where does boredom come into this? How does it become so important for this?
Well, I think first off, acknowledge the fact that boredom is okay. And maybe just give them a playlist of things that they can do. Why don't you go read a book? Why don't you play a game? Build Lego. Sometimes my kids are like, well, there's nothing to do. I'm just going to take a nap. Okay, cool. Take a nap if that's what you need to do. But we need to start instilling in these kids that there is not always going to be someone that's going to be there for you to help you along the way. And we want to make sure that we're raising kids that turn into adults that are not only productive, but adults that also understand what it means to just take a chill time and not always have to be overscheduled.
I love what you have here. That boredom builds problem-solving skills. I always say to my kids, boredom is the spark of creativity.
Yes.
The line they hate. They roll their eyes the second I say it, but it is so true.
Yes, and things like imagination, right? We've lost that art of, whether it's an imaginary friend or, if it's something that you're creating with your friends, with, siblings if you have them. These are really important things that we need to bring back to our kids.
What happens if our kids don't experience boredom from time to time?
Then they're going to start to grow into adults that have issues when they're not overscheduled. There's going to be high tensions. They're going to panic whenever there's things that aren't going their way. It goes back to that emotional regulation piece of, I don't know how to deal with that because growing up, I wasn't taught that. So we have to be really careful because, like we know, mental health is continuing to be on the rise.
God, even something like sending the kids to the park without a device to track them or for them to call home.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's problem solving that comes into play there. Yeah. That if you don't know how to do that, how can you then move out for the first time? How can you go to school in a different city for the first time?
Yeah, well, it's that difference also of building resiliency, but life skills and social skills. And I'll give you a really quick example. I dropped off one of my kids at soccer last night, and the doors were locked, and he kind of just stood there. So I rolled down the window, and I said, there's a man there, knock on the window and he'll open the door. So it's like we're losing that critical thinking piece because we're constantly on the go and movement. So, you know, we can help these kiddos, but it also takes 30 days to learn a new habit. Yeah.
How do you be bored for the first time? Where do you start?
Well, and stay with me here. We have to lead by example. So maybe we need to put our phones down as well. You know, our kiddos are also our biggest critics, and they'll call you out. Well, you're telling me I can't be on my screen or my tablet, but you're on your phone. You're scrolling on Facebook, on TikTok, on whatever it is. So you need to model by example and say, you know what? You're right. Mommy's going to put her phone down too. But let's all find something to do.
Calista, great to have you on the show again.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to take you back, okay? The year is 2001. That is when this movie was about to rev it up at the box office. In the words of Vin Diesel, let's go for a ride, a little one.
Let's go for a little ride.
How about me butchering that line? It has been 25 years since the first Fast and Furious movie. The franchise is the 8th most popular film series in history. These movies have earned $7.3 billion at the global box office. That is more than Batman, Jurassic Park, Lord of the Rings, the Mission Impossible series. I mean, just huge. And how do I know all of this? Well, because it's in Barry Hertz's new book. The book is called Welcome to the Family. I got that right. We are saying welcome to Barry Hertz this morning. Good to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I find this so fascinating that you devoted this whole book to this. What is it about this franchise that you're just so into?
Well, I kind of like to consider myself a big tent moviegoer. You know, I like the art house as much as the foreign language, as much as a big, juicy summer blockbuster. And I think that the Fast series, you know, it started off as this relatively grounded B-movie, street racing, LA, and then every successive sequel doubled down on the insanity, the absurdity. They're in literal outer space by part 9, and I love tracing that narrative arc.
Was it tricky to get people to go on the record for this?
It was tricky. I mean, with any Hollywood property, you're looking at people who are a little reticent. This also involves a lot of very high-profile Hollywood celebrities who have been notoriously difficult or touchy in the press. So I probably sent out, you know, cumulatively more emails, LinkedIn requests, Instagram DMs than I have in my 20-year journalism career just for this project.
And who did you end up speaking with?
Well, I spoke with a lot of the behind-the-scenes guys. Cool. So a lot of the writers, the editors, the stunt people, the directors, the studio executives, the people who really make these things happen. So once stars like Vin Diesel and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson get there, you know, things are already deeply in motion.
Okay, speaking of in motion, I want to ask you about the two of them, because we can't talk about this franchise without talking about Vin Diesel and The Rock, right? Big stars, big personalities, big public feud. What did you learn?
I learned basically that the feud is not manufactured for publicity. It is a very real thing, and a lot of people were kind of speculating that they play antagonists on screen, so maybe that was kind of a publicity stunt to generate viewer interest. But no, they really do not like each other, although I will say that Vin probably wants Dwayne to like him more than Dwayne wants Vin to like him.
And why do you say that?
I think because Vin recognizes that the franchise, which is his empire and has become his baby, really needs the dose of adrenaline and energy and star power, frankly, that The Rock can bring to it. And The Rock's career since joining the Fast franchise has kind of gone, you know, on the ascendancy. And Vin's has remained kind of like, you know, a little flat. Like, Fast is his, but The Rock has like 5 other franchises too.
But why don't they like each other? What's the root of it?
Well, they're 2 alpha guys. And once you get 2 alpha guys in the same room together, they're going to have tough time fighting for attention in that space. And I think Vin is very much a micromanager in a sense. Like, Fast is, again, his baby. He wants it to fine-tune it as much as possible. And Dwayne wants to come in and do his own thing. And he's more of a crowd pleaser, kind of the cocky charmer of the group. Vin, known for tweaking lots of things, known for coming to sets very late, for, let's say, for lack of a better term, wasting people's time. And The Rock does not have any time to waste and will not abide by anybody trying to eat up his schedule.
Oh, so fascinating. Now, I told you off camera when you sat down, when I think of the Fast and the Furious franchise, I immediately think of Paul Walker. Obviously, that was such a shock when he died, and especially the manner in which he died. That was 12 years ago. That's hard to believe for me. So you write about the impact of that and what that had. What did you learn about him?
I learned that basically everything you would hope to know about Paul Walker is true. You could not find a bad word from anybody about this man. He was, in a lot of ways, the tonal opposite on set of Vin. Vin would keep to himself. Again, he would be late. Paul was always on time, always ready, knew his lines, knew your lines, knew your background. And if you had like a babysitter who had a dog walker, who had a cousin who was a fan of the franchise or one of his other films, he would make sure to get that person on the phone and spend hours talking with him. And he was also very much a car guy. Like a lot of these stars who are involved in the series, you know, they come in and they don't really know what they're doing. Paul had a whole fleet of cars. He was very much into the culture. And that's why he brought kind of an authenticity to it that a lot of fans appreciated.
All fans are going to love this book. Barry Hertz, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks for having me.
A reminder, everybody, the book is called Welcome to the Family. Are you ready to get roasted?
If you look closely, his pupils are in 2 different time zones. It looks like this guy can see both weekends from a Wednesday.
I don't know what she's talking
Okay, so that is a look at season 5 of Roast Battle Canada, where some of the top comedians in this country hash it out with hilarious insults aimed at each other. An all-star cast of judges features Russell Peters, Sabrina Jalise, K. Trevor Wilson. To decide who gets crowned champion, and host Enes Esmer is here this morning with a sneak peek into the new season. Good morning to you.
Hi, hello, good morning.
Good morning.
It's nice to be here. This is exciting.
I know, and we have chairs that swivel. How about that?
I know, that's huge. That is any show that does that. Other shows are on notice. Let's get a swivel going. This is great.
100%.
Yeah.
Let's talk about roasting. I was watching the Globes last night and watching Nikki Glaser, who was hosting, and she kind of opened with this whole roasting thing, and she did a really good job. What, in your opinion, what makes a good roast?
I think actually doing good research on a subject is good. It helps if there's a rapport between the people being roasted. Like on our show, we try to get people together that actually know each other organically in real life, so they can actually take shots at each other, but respond in a way that, you know, like you watch like the Chevy Chase roast from back in the day. Nobody there seems to really be a huge fan of his. So on our show, I find it works best when they already have a friendship and they can really tear each other apart and enjoy it.
Right, because there's a line, right? Like, how do you know where that line is?
Well, yeah, the other side of the line is you're just being mean to somebody who didn't ask for it. You know what I mean? So this is not what we're trying to cultivate on the show.
So how do judges decide on a winner on the show?
I think they like to be surprised. They like it to be rude. A lot of the material that I'm glad you're not asking me for example jokes, because I have learned that even like running jokes by people at a dinner party, they do not work outside that context. So I think they're just looking for a way to be shocked, really. That's a big part of it. But there's so many cliche ways to set up roast jokes that it's just, there's always ways to find something new, and I think they really
Is there a formula to it?
I mean, there's a lot of old, you know, we don't have to, you'll see, it's refreshing when you see a new take, you're like, oh, I didn't know you could get made fun of for that specific thing. That's great, it's very exciting, it's progressive.
Speaking of excited, what makes you excited about the lineup of contestants on the show?
Oh, this is our best season ever. We got, I mean, you saw Jackie Pirico there and Alistair Ogden, they're hilarious, and a very funny comedian, Tom Henry's on the show. We got, there's a drag race battle, there's a Letterkenny battle, and we got to shoot it during Just for Laughs this year, which was so thrilling compared to where we've been shooting it the first few seasons, and to be part of the festival and that energy was really amazing.
So the energy,
and
like,
look, there's smoke, there's lights.
Smoke.
Look at
special
this.
effects. How do you not?
Jackie's getting a lot of screen time. I like that for her. That's great.
Speaking of energy, I mean, you had a portion of the show that was filmed in front of a live audience.
The whole thing?
The whole thing.
The whole thing this year.
So what does that energy, how does that change the energy in the room?
Well, the first season we shot was during COVID, so there were a lot of like restrictions, and we actually had background actors brought out that could be tested and made sure they were okay, but they were also sitting with like 2 empty seats between them. So going from that to having packed house, paying audience, no offense to background actors, but they were being paid to be there and it was a job for them. People going there to actually have a great time, it raised everybody's game, I think. So that's all part of it. And then the people that were on the show were on other shows later, and Not me personally. This is all I can really handle. Is posting.
You got a lot
those.
going on.
Yeah, well, they're really mean to me, so I need a lot of downtime to get over it. And
You to cry.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for
Congrats on
having
the
me.
new season. We're so glad you joined us today.
And if you want more of these great conversations, you can download or hit subscribe to Your Morning the podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
And of course, we'd love for you to watch us live weekday mornings on CTV, CTV News Channel, and Crave. Start your morning with us.